are live. Okay, so you guys probably know this by now. We have 6 people waiting, so I'm not going to wait very long before we start. I think we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen of Vanderbilt and the entire YouTube world. Welcome to Terrier Talk Season 2, Episode 24. And we have very special guests here today, Mr. Jacob Fairchild and William Luke. Special specifically, I talked mostly about varsity on this show just because for kind of the sake of brevity. But today I have 2 8th graders on, both played on the football and the basketball teams. And I think you guys, first of all, just congratulations on your season. You just completed the junior high basketball season. Jonathan Jensen, never seen them before, but that is okay. Thank you for interacting on the comment section. Already 9 people watching, so thank you to everyone for watching. And but into the interview. So 2 very eventful, very fun seasons for you guys, football and basketball. But we'll start with kind of the negative of it, and that I'll start with you, Will, and your injury in the football season. You were the starting quarterback, you get hurt, ends your season. So kind of describe to me how that happened, and the play, and then the recovery, all of that.
I was running out of bounds, and then I kind of stopped myself because I was out, and then they were going so fast, they knocked me out. I grabbed myself, brakes, and the recovery after that, it just made me work harder.
Yeah,
and I think it was a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? It just made me better.
Kind of makes you appreciate the. Now I was lucky. I played football for a while, never got hurt, but kind of makes you appreciate from what I've seen. The time you do get on that field. Kind of reminds me of your situation to Caleb Calhouns from earlier in the year. He gets injured in the preseason, works hard, gets back on the field in the middle of the season, and is a big contributor to the team. You get injured in the football season, you work back into the basketball season, and you're a big contributor. So what exactly was the injury, and then the timetable, and getting back into basketball season?
It was I fractured one bone, and then I broke another one in my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And then the timetable, it was a lot shorter than it was supposed to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really good. And so I missed about a week of basketball, so it was not.
Yeah. I know missing a lot of the football season. I don't remember which game was it in. Do you remember?
It was against Evergreen.
Okay. Because I remember I was at the game, but obviously getting injured and missing the football season is unfortunate, but luckily you were able to get into basketball, and that's very good. So congratulations on that rehab, on getting back and doing well in basketball this year. So now I have a question for both of you guys about kind of this year in general. Both of you went to John Wade says, "Nice hair, Jacob."
Thanks.
Thank you, John, and thank you, John, for commenting, interacting again, like I said. But you guys both, this is your first year at Vanderbilt, both in 8th grade, came from St. Francis. So unlike most of the other people I have on where they're seniors and they're used to it, and that's not really something worth talking about, it kind of is for you guys. So how is your first year here at Vanderbilt?
It's been interesting. The sports, I played 7th grade, so the sports are kind of the same coach and all that. So just kind of getting used to the new curriculum.
Right. Like the school life, is it a bigger, because I had a little bit of a different situation. I didn't go to St. Francis. I was homeschooled, so a little different for me. Is the workload a lot bigger at Vanderbilt? It is? Okay. Compared to St. Francis. Anything specific from you, Will?
A lot more freedom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess, again, I don't really know that because I don't know how the 7th grade classes work at St. Francis, but I can definitely see that happening. It's very different from anything you guys would, or anyone would. Brady Hazelton has a question for William. Which wrist did you break? I think I know this, but all right. Well, yeah, I was, if I recall correctly, yeah, it was your right. And I find that okay, Brady. But yeah, that is important because I think one thing about I wonder if that would have changed your timetable. Because, again, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. You were right-handed.
Yeah.
Right-handed quarterback. So the difference between a fracturing, the offhand and fracturing your throwing arm, first of all, is there any difference now in the throwing motion for you in using that arm?
Not really. Like
Okay.
sometimes when it's cold, it gets a little stiffer, but that's about it.
Well, first of all, that's great that it's recovered pretty much fully. But also, I do wonder, and this isn't really a question, I just kind of conjecture. I do wonder if there would have been a difference had there, maybe you would have made it back to the football season if it were your left arm instead. So I do find that interesting and kind of a simple question, but thank you, Brady. An interesting thought process to see what could have happened. Now a question for Jacob specifically, because it's kind of interesting, you guys' two different kind of development paths throughout the summer. I was with both of you for a lot of the summer when before 8th grade football practices specifically started. You guys practiced with the high school team 9th through 12th, and as 8th graders, Will, I saw you a lot during the quarterback practices, and you were practicing as a quarterback every single practice. And that's interesting, and it is unique, but it's not quite the same experience that Jacob had. Because you kind of moved around a lot. You played some offense, even practiced some during the summer. You practiced a lot of free safety, and then eventually, of course, we know moved to being one of the leading tacklers on the team defense for the 8th grade, playing linebacker. So, kind of describe that movement and how that kind of changed your game, or if it did at all throughout your season.
Junior high, it's a lot less passing, so we decided to stack the inside, protect the run defense. I had played there the year before also.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of used to it.
Okay, so you did have a lot of experience, but that's good. And I will say this, when it comes to stopping the run, you were very effective at it. I was lucky enough to come to a lot of your games for football this season. I think all 3 of the home games. And it was, you, again, like I said, you were one of the leading tacklers, and it was very effective. You guys had a lot of success stopping the run and held teams usually to very few points. So on a scale of, Scott Haydell asks, on a scale of 3 to 5, how much did it hurt? Or how bad did it hurt when you broke the wrists? Well, I don't know exactly what kind of scale 3 to 5 is, but
it didn't hurt that bad. It was just like the pain, because like the summer before, I was working really hard because I really wanted that starting job, and I was waking up like really early every morning, go work out, throwing, and so it wasn't any pain. It was just like a little pain in my heart that I got hurt.
Well, first of all, congratulations for earning the starting job, and like I said before, congratulations for working back to it. But interesting question. Thank you, Scott. So obviously, congratulations in a lot of things. Talked about quarterback and recovering, but your effect on that defense. Because I thought both you and Sam, and I'm not saying this to discredit anyone else who played very well on that defense. Everyone did. You guys, again, held teams to very few points. Okay. Anyway, I don't think these questions are worth entertaining. Thank you, though. Anyway, so I talked about again. This is no discredit to anyone else who played well on that defense, because again, everyone did. Everyone did their part, played well with whether it was the cornerbacks, the safeties, the defensive line. You guys had some great players everywhere. But I felt like both you and Sam on that defense, the two linebackers, were just everywhere.
Yeah.
And is there any, obviously I know that linebackers tend to lead teams in tackles, but is there a structural difference? Is there a structural reason for that it felt like you guys just were in all of the places at once when you're playing?
I think me and Sam kind of watched a lot of film with other teams, talked to a lot of the teams who had played them, knew what was coming, knew what to watch out for.
Yeah.
So whenever we would see a certain lineup, we would
kind of know where the play was going.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting because, again, I played a lot. I know that age group very well. And film is usually somewhat limited. You know what I mean? I know you guys watch it, but it's not quite the same when you get to the higher levels where that's every week and it's full practices of game planning. Teddy Golick asks, what do you watch the film on? I don't know.
just like if friends or parents were getting videos of the
Okay.
games for their kids.
Right.
Get them to send that to us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Because, again, when you get to high school football, it's a lot more formatted. It's required for every team. But to put in that effort to find video, to get those game plans, and kind of rare at that age group, but it shows on the field. So congratulations for that. Both of you guys played very well throughout your eighth grade seasons, both in football and in basketball. And I kind of want to ask about basketball because I know you guys had a pretty successful season. You did rather well. Not like you didn't win the district championship, is that correct? No, but you still had success. And is there anything? I know this is kind of a broad question, but for both of you, is there anything from that basketball season that's any specific game or specific moment or memory that you want to talk about here and bring it up and talk what you remember so well from it?
Actually, recently we played the Montague game.
Okay.
I thought probably the best we played all season, and still lost. I'm sure that we got great potential for future seasons.
Well, that's awesome. That is one thing. I talked last week a lot about the youth at Vanderbilt and different players and how bright the future is in a lot of sports. And I think that's one thing with because I have seen you guys a little bit. I saw 7th grade play a good bit. That the future is very bright. You guys have a lot of talent. You guys have when you get older, there's a lot that you can do, and the potential is definitely there. Even if you came up short in that game, there's still definitely a lot. Looking forward to you guys in the next seasons. I probably won't have much of a chance to watch you, but I hope you guys do great in that. I don't think that question is really worth entertaining either. John Wade asks how you got that Mamba mentality, if you want to.
Nobody got Mamba mentality.
Okay.
Except Mamba.
Actually, that is true. Good. A lot of respect to Kobe Bryant. We had a moment of silence for him last week. Okay, so one final question. I asked this about basketball, but with both seasons and your entire time at Vanderbilt, is there anything you remember? Is there anything that you really, for both of you, again, that you enjoyed wanting to talk about?
I remember right before I got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Al came up to me, told me a story about Steve Young, how he got hit in the Super Bowl. It was like a game-winning throw or something, and he did it like as he was getting hit. And right when I went out there, I got a long 30-yard pass to Teddy.
Yeah.
Right, getting hit pretty well. So
Okay.
that was pretty special.
Yeah, because that is interesting. Man. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you, Will. So that is it. Well, first of all, thank you for both of you for coming on today. Oops, sorry, Jacob. So that is it for, I guess, the true. One more question from Dante. How many times did you foul out this season, Jacob?
I think we found out maybe 5 games in a row, actually.
That's great. Okay, so a little quick thing. I was it for the prepared questions I had for you guys, but a little quick thing about that, because that is a bit of a, I guess, legacy thing from the seniors this year. How much have you guys watched the girls' basketball games from varsity?
I watched a couple.
I watched one, I think.
Obviously, they play very hard. They play very physically, and they're a lot of fun to watch. But they also have a little bit of a, and of course, many people who watch probably know this as well. A little bit of a reputation for fouling out a lot. So don't worry about that. That's that's a part of your game. That because usually when someone fouls out, you're just playing harder than a lot of other people on the court, and sometimes that happens.
That's a bad roast.
Well, don't worry too much about that. Worry about what you can control, and it's don't worry about that. It's just play as physically as you can, and what happens happens. Play hard to give as much effort. You guys both gave a lot of effort, both on the court and on the field this season, and off the field, for both of you. And so, congratulations on a great year in sports. I don't know if either of you are doing track or any baseball. Okay. Well, best of luck in the baseball season. And I hope you guys have a great year and a great future at Vanderbilt. So I already shook your hand, but thank you for coming on. It's a little different, a little bit different of a format this week. Usually when I finish the interview, I ask my interviewee if they want to leave or if they want to stay on. Usually they don't want to stay on, but Will and Jacob do, and that is okay. I will move on with the episode, however. But I do want to bring up one thing that actually isn't directed towards Will and Jacob, but it's talking about you guys. So, so one thing is that excuse me, I apologize. Is I thought with this youth, excuse me, I had to give myself a second to organize my thoughts. I asked 2 8th graders to come on this week, Will and Jacob, and I thought this was a really good time to do that because this, I brought it up earlier, but this channel, this show has been mainly talking about varsity sports, mostly for the sake of brevity, for the sake of being able to do everything in a concise manner. Some episodes, even despite that, go 45, 50 minutes. So sometimes I have to just talk about the varsity sports to get through things. But the youth at the school, whether it's you guys in 8th grade football, 8th grade basketball, many other players on those same teams, 9th graders, sophomores that have that same bright future, you guys are fun to watch. And I don't have as much of a chance to talk about you as I wish I did. So in these last few weeks, I talked about the youth a little bit more. I brought up Jemmy. I brought up Alex, who get varsity playing time in basketball. Ryan, of course, we had on last week. And, of course, have you guys on. And I thought this was a good time to do it because this week's a little bit of I don't want to say it's a down week, but in different sports, it's not as eventful as some weeks will be. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the beginning of spring seasons as well as winter seasons finishing up and having their big playoffs. So that is going to be a little bit different, a little bit busier. I definitely won't have a lot of time to talk about the junior high, but this is a good time to do it because girls just finished, and we'll talk about that in a second. Girls soccer waiting for playoffs to start. Boys soccer has one big game this week, but not a lot to talk about. Also waiting for playoffs to start in just a couple of weeks. So this is a good time to talk about you guys, and I'm happy I had you guys on. So moving on to other sports, let's talk about boys soccer first off. So boys soccer had a kind of an interesting week. They played a lot of games, 4 to be exact, which is a long week for any sports. Soccer and basketball work very similarly in that way, where you can have anywhere between 1 and 4 to even more than that games in a week. But especially 4 very important games. One of them is a district game. I know the district championship already was won, but it's still a district game at the beginning of the season that was scheduled, as well as 3 other games, one of which being against a very highly ranked opponent in Lafayette, and we'll talk about that game in just a second. It's a big workload, and that might be part of the reason why the Lafayette game went the way it did. So quickly throughout the results, we beat Holy Cross 2-0. We beat International to finish district 5-2, and we beat Pope John Paul 2-0 on Saturday. But then there's the game against Lafayette High. Now Lafayette High, I didn't give them enough justice in the last week's episode when I previewed this. They're not just a good team, not just the best team we played this week. They are a great team. They are ranked 10th in the power points in Division 1 right now, and in some coaches' polls, they're ranked higher than that at like number 7. They're 12-3-4 going into this game. It was their only game this week, and so the fact that we lost, not just lost, but lost 3-0, I'm not going to say it's not surprising because we are still the number 1 seed, and it was maybe an upset. We might have been favored in the game, but it's not a huge I guess it's not a giant upset is the big thing to say. It's not a shocker that we would have lost this game. Lafayette's a great team, and coming up short against them isn't something to hang our heads about. Well, that is a lot of comments. I apologize. Okay, well, great job, Mouse. Hope you can come to practice tomorrow. Also, Sam giving us a little bit of Super Bowl commentary. Thank you. 49ers are up 20-10. Guess they had some good halftime adjustments. Do you have a 21? Okay. I do disagree with the statement that Patrick Mahomes is less than a good quarterback. However, Scott asks, what's been the biggest letdown this season for basketball? I will answer that question with a review of a game later this episode. Although I don't know if you were asking to the 8th graders, if either of you have a letdown.
Probably Edie White.
Yeah.
You do wait? Okay. But for varsity, if that is, I don't know which you were asking. Okay, so the practice you're coming to is Friday. Oh, wait, never mind. So anyway, if you were asking about varsity, I'll answer that question a little bit. But boys soccer, like I said, nothing really to hang your head about. It's a loss, but I wouldn't worry about it too much for boys soccer. They'll be fine. They'll probably still be the number 1 seed going into the playoffs as long as, well, we'll talk about the game this week and how much that can affect PowerPoints in a little bit. Girls soccer, I apologize because I missed a very big game last week in the preview section. That was the Edie White game. Girls in the Holy War, a big, big game, even if the two teams are in 2 different divisions, which means that there are no playoff implications, unlike a certain boys soccer game this week. Still a huge game, still a huge rivalry game. It got put off a few weeks, almost a month, I think, from when it was originally scheduled. It would have been the main event last week if I had remembered or had seen it. I apologize. But needless to say, the game lived up to expectations and then some. As big as rivalry games are, this one honestly didn't have huge expectations. Edie White, their girls team is seen as pretty good, but not great. Our girls team, is seen as pretty elite this season. A poll was given on LA Preps, giving us an 85% chance of winning the game, and we come up short, 2-1. Edie White takes a 2-0 lead, and we end up losing the game 2-1. Unfortunate loss, of course. Obviously, you never want to see it. Never want to see us losing to Edie White, but it happens, and we won't have a chance to rematch them in the playoffs, unfortunately. So we'll see if. Hopefully we can at least move further than them, move on further than them in our respective playoffs. They're ranked somewhat highly in their division, but they're a full division below us this season. Not a loss we ever want to see. And it's another loss that makes the ensuing playoff run a little bit more concerning. We won't be the number 1 seed, unlike the boys. We'll be probably the number 5 seed. That's where we are now. We're kind of waiting for playoff seedings to come out. And we've taken a lot of these kind of losses lately. We had a loss to Mandeville earlier in the year, back in, I think, December. We had a lot of losses to teams that maybe we shouldn't have lost to. We were favored against Edie White this week. And we need to play better than that if we want to actually make a run. We don't want a similar thing to happen with, say, our girls volleyball team. The girls volleyball team was playing great, was favored to win, made it to the state championship game 2 years in a row, just like the girls soccer team. And now the girls volleyball team won both years. Girls soccer team came up short, but that's beside the point. Made it back-to-back, go up to the division, presumed to make a similar run, and come up short. Who do I think boys soccer will play? I do not know, and I think a lot of that is impacted by the big game this week against Edie White, and I'll talk about that later on at the end of the show. But we can't play like we did against Edie White if we want to make a deep run. That's what it comes down to. Because, again, a similar thing happened to volleyball. Similar runs, similarly seeded. I think volleyball ended up the 4 seed, and they came up short in quarterfinals, despite having bigger expectations. If we don't want the same thing to happen to us, we have to play better than we did against Edie White. Because Edie White is not favored to make a super deep run in the playoffs. They're good, but they're not favored. They weren't favored to beat us. So we need to play better than that, because there will be teams that we are not favored to beat, that are on paper going to be predicted to win. And we need to play better than that if we're actually going to beat a team like that. Moving on to basketball this week. Both boys and girls basketball, of course, had the same schedule, which will be true for the next few weeks. Starting with girls basketball, Mouse wants William and Jacob to talk more, although, like I said, if you guys want to interject, if you have any comments about anything, you're free to, but the interview portion is, of course, over. That's why I'm not really talking to them.
I'm sorry, Mouse, we're not talking.
No, I mean it's okay. Like I said, if you have anything to add, you're free to. But this stuff doesn't really pretend. I'm not really asking for your boys soccer expertise or your girls soccer expertise, so I'm not. Whoa. Um, so I'm not really asking any specific questions to you. But like I said, if you want to interject in the conversation, you are free to. So moving on to basketball, where maybe you do want to add more. We'll see. Boys and girls, I said this last week, and it will stay the same for a few weeks. Have the same schedule, so I'm going to talk about it both Tuesday games and then both Friday games instead of boys basketball, girls, girls. So the games on Tuesday night at South Terrebonne, the girls were favored to win the game, but not by much. South Terrebonne team, I brought this up last week. It's still true. This is one of the best districts, probably the best district in girls basketball in the entire state of Louisiana. Every single team is good except for Morgan City. And South Terrebonne probably is the second worst team in the district. Well, no, I mean, this is in girls basketball a normal, and I'm not like kidding on you for saying that, but I'm just saying in girls basketball, a normal district, you have like one or two good teams. There usually isn't that much parity in girls basketball across an entire district. 5 of the 6 teams are good and probably going to finish ranked or potentially ranked by the end of the season. It's a very good district. Every single team finished ranked, and 5 of the 6 finished in the top 20 in the state last year. So it is a great district. And South Terrebonne might be the second worst team in the district, but they're still very good. So the game went about as you would expect. They played well. They played solidly. We ended up with a victory. We played a little bit more slowly in the first quarter than we should have. Didn't get off to a great start, but we ended up okay. Final score was 40-32. But unlike some games, that a 40-32 score actually is much closer than that, and one team pulls away by hitting a bunch of free throws. It's kind of the reverse thing that happened. We were up by about 14 or so in the final 2 minutes, and they hit a couple buckets at the end to close it within 8. So yes, 8-point win, but maybe a little bit not as close of a game as that might indicate. The boys basketball team probably had the biggest letdown. Scott asked that question earlier, probably directed towards Jacob and Will, but probably the biggest letdown of the year for boys basketball. For the few people that might remember, at the beginning of the year, we had a jamboree game against South Terrebonne. Not the same rosters, of course, and I brought this up last week in the preview section. Not the same rosters. Both teams get, football players. But we tied in that, and we probably would get more talent than they would from football, possibly. And so we move on to this game. Even at South Terrebonne, we're probably favored to win the game. And we don't just lose, we lose by 26, which is deflating for a roster. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's unfortunate. All those close losses to South Lafourche and to East St. John and to Point Compete and to St. Charles all in a row, you can only do that for so long before sometimes it falls apart at the seams. And I felt like that's kind of what happened at South Terrebonne this week. And it's unfortunate. You don't want to see that happen. So not a great game, not a great game at all for us. And hopefully we can just move on and ignore what happened at Assumption. I'll talk about the girls' game first because it happened first chronologically. The girls lost by almost 30 the first time they played. I think it was 59-31. So at Assumption, some might expect it to be a less close game, but those who would expect that would be wrong. The final score, if I recall correctly, was 54-41. One quick check to make sure that is correct. 54-41, yes. Much more competitive. Luckily for us, still looks like we do compete with everyone in this district, even if we do come up short against what's probably the best team in the district in Assumption for the girls basketball team, for the girls basketball district. Much more competitive, showing signs of improvement for us, even traveling there and playing like that. Great job. But it does take away any slight chance that we probably still had of winning the district. That is a 4th district loss, 2 to Assumption, 1 to South Lafourche, and 1 Allender. it's probably too much for us to try to bounce back from. We could finish well in the district. We can still compete and beat other teams that are competing. Both South Lafourche and Ellender are teams that we play again. But it would be a little bit too much to ask, probably too much numerically to ask for us to try to actually catch up in that district race at this point. A win against Assumption and maybe we had a shot, but at this point I think it's a little bit too much. That's not to say that the season's over, though. We still have the state playoffs. We still have very big district rivalry games to play in and potentially win, including this week. But the potential for us to win the district, which was something I thought we could do at the beginning of the year, is probably gone at this point. However, the disappointment from that loss is nowhere near the disappointment from the loss at Assumption for the boys. I was not able to come to either of these games. I only saw the box score. The final score of this game was 114-40. Whew. What is the girls' record? I don't know the exact number. I'm pretty sure of the exact number of the boys' record, which I don't really want to say. But the girls' record is probably around 60% winning. If I had to guess, probably about 5 to 6 games over 500. They've won a lot of games outside of district, even if they're only 2-4 in district right now. The boys' record, I will go ahead and say it. I'm pretty sure is 4-22. And that's not good, of course. But the game against Assumption was even less fun to watch, if I had to guess. Even if it wasn't very surprising. Transitively, actually, the score makes a lot of sense. We lost Ellender by 42 points last Friday, and on Tuesday, Ellender went to Assumption and lost by 30, 77-47, if I recall correctly, which transitively would mean we should lose by about 72. We lost by 74, so it makes sense. But I mean, statistically, it's outside of the fact that our defense usually doesn't play this poorly. A lot of what happened in that game, just numerically speaking, made sense. Assumption puts up a lot of points. They play very well. They are somewhere along the lines of 25-3 right now. Easily the favorites to win our district. They are a great team and could make a run at the state championship game or even victory. And we're not that right now. And that's just not where the program is currently. These two people here might lead us to being closer to that in the future. We'll see.
I do very much believe that. Like our junior year, probably make a run at the state with the talent we'll have.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I'm trying to think your junior year, and that'll be like Alex is a senior, Jalen's a sophomore. Yeah, you guys definitely can compete at that point. I think that's the year I was pegging for you guys to be really big contenders as well. But yeah, the future is very bright, but the present isn't. And Assumption's just in a very different place from as a program than we are right now. We're still kind of in a rebuild, second-year head coach. And, not a big surprise, a 74-point loss, but it's not fun to watch. Not fun to see happen. And we're going to have to play them again. And I'm pretty sure it's our last home game. There's a reason it's not our senior night. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's it for the review for this week. Moving on to the preview. Tennis season opens real quick against Berwick. It's a JV game, I think. I think that's how it's the blue team. I'm pretty sure gold is varsity. Any tennis people who are watching this, if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. But I think it's just a JV game versus Berwick on February 6th. I did not realize that they could start this early. Wow. That is really I know, and also, I guess, not just I know this, but another thing is that indoor track begins this week at LSU on Saturday. So best of luck both to the tennis team and to our indoor track team for their performances going into those matches and meets. Moving on to basketball, we take on Morgan City on Tuesday, and that game, I think it is senior night. I might be wrong on that. If I am, I apologize. But I know that the Assumption game, despite being our final home game of the season, is not senior night. The reason for that is the fact that we just lost to them by 74 points. That would be the least interesting senior night I've ever seen. That's why it's not happening. Morgan City is a much more beatable team. They're not bad, but they're not great either. They are one of the weaker teams in the district, but they're beatable, unlike Assumption. They're a beatable team, so we can go out there and try our best and go out and beat them. If we play like we did against teams like St. Charles and South Lafourche, this game is very winnable. We just can't play like we did against South Terrebonne. We have to come back. We have to kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. That's the word I'm looking for. Bootstraps, excuse me. And try to win that district game. We can't go winless in district. That's just not something we can let happen. So whether it is senior night or not, we need to work our hardest to get a win because this is a winnable game. Morgan City is not a great team. We can go out there and try our best and win this game. That's what matters. The girls, a little bit better of an outlook on this game. The girls are favored to win this. I said this before, Morgan City is the only team in the district this year that isn't very good. They're getting blown out by most teams. We already played them earlier this season for the girls. We beat them by about 30, by almost 40 points even. Scores now, quick update from one viewer, scores now 20-7 49ers. Thank you.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yes, I don't know who that is, but thank you. So we beat them earlier this season. Probably going to beat them again at home. So best of luck to both the boys and the girls in that game. It is very winnable. Just as winnable as the game on Friday. It is a game at South Lafourche. And for those who remember a few weeks ago, a pair of heartbreaking losses, not last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. And those are two games that we're not going to forget for a while, but maybe pulling out a win in either or potentially both of these games could wash that bad taste out of our mouth. The boys really haven't played the same since that game. We came up just short, and we got blown out by Ellender, blown out by Assumption, and surprisingly blown out by South Terrebonne. And the girls have rebounded, obviously, with the win against Morgan City afterwards, but still not a win against Morgan City afterwards, the win against South Terrebonne this week. But still a very painful loss. And it's two that we will remember very well on that bus trip up, or down, actually, to cutoff. And this game's always special. I talked about it the week that we actually had the first South Lafourche game. They travel very well to Vanderbilt. The thing is that we actually travel very well to them, too. Last year, we traveled surprisingly well and came up just short. And this year, we might have the chance to do the same. We can play very well at South Lafourche. It just depends on how we go about it. We have that chance. We have that ability. So it's going to be a physical game. Both games will, just like they were last time. But we have to block out that crowd noise if South Lafourche does what they normally do at games. If we can do that and work our best, play our best, we can win both of those games. And unlike, say, the Morgan City game for the boys, where that's really just conjecture, we know that. We had a lead against them for 3/4 of the second half the last time we played them. So we know this game's winnable. We just have to go out there and do it. That's what matters. So that's it for basketball this week. Moving on to girls soccer, I'm just going to briefly talk about this because there isn't much to talk about because there isn't actually anything on the schedule for them right now. The playoff brackets get released on Tuesday, so best of luck to the girls for whoever they play. They'll probably get a bye. Will probably be the 5th seed. I know they have the talent to. They have the ability to make a state run. Let's just see if they'll do it. Best of luck to them for their future playoff run. And finally, the main event of the week, boys soccer versus E.D. White. Someone asked earlier, who do we play in the first round? I do not know. I could look at it and guess, but every single game in high school affects every single other team. So trying to figure that out is very difficult. But what I do know is that this game is huge for PowerPoints. Unlike last week, where the girls took on E.D. White and came up short, and obviously no one wants to see that happen here at Vanderbilt. It doesn't actually have big state championship implications because E.D. White's a Division III school, we're a Division II school now. We just went up one division. That is not the same in boys soccer. The boys are Division III, E.D. White is Division III, and they are two teams that have legitimate chances at winning the state championship And changing any seeding, whether it's just one up and one down for each of us if ED White wins this, is huge. So before I talk about the game a little bit more, here's a quick playoff preview. Not from a seeding perspective, but from the outlook of these teams' perspective. I'm kind of split it up into 3 tiers and then everyone else. You have tier 1. I'm sourcing this off of the LA Preps poll or ranking they have of the top 10 plus the others receiving votes. So you have about 3 teams that are kind of clearly seen as the big favorites for state championship in boys soccer right now. That's us, of course, the number 1 seed, University Lab, or University High, and Loyola. All 3 of us have been great this season, and we're probably going to be the number 1 seed unless we lose to ED White. I'll talk about that in a second. But we're the 3 teams that are the big favorites. Then you have the second tier, teams that definitely could win but are not the favorites. We're talking about Lusher. We have Parkview. We have ED White, and we have North Vermilion. ED White can win the state championship. I think that's the big thing to talk about. And then finally, tier 3, the rank outsiders, Noma and Bossier both seem to have somewhat of a chance. They could make a run, kind of where we would be projected last year, or we would have been projected last year going into it, and we did make a run. We made it to semis. So a team like that definitely could make a run, but they're not big favorites. That gives us, I think this is the big thing, that gives us 9 teams. 3 in the first tier, 4 in the second, 2 in the third. That means that by the quarterfinals, we're going to have to play one of these teams. We've already played Noma this season, and we drew them. We won in district, but the official thing says that we drew them. So we know they can compete with us. We know they can hold us down when it was a 0-0 tie. So it's not an easy game to win. So whoever we have to play early on, as early as the quarterfinals, it's not going to be easy. It's not an easy road for us. Those are 9 teams that can compete with anyone else. So every single seeding is going to matter. And that's why this game against ED White is so big, especially so late into the season. Kind of a comparison for maybe some people that aren't big boys soccer fans for how big this game could be. And I'm not a huge PowerPoint guru, so I don't really know. But my guess is any NFL fans that watched the 49ers Seahawks game in Week 17, that's kind of what could happen. Now, I don't think it'll be nearly as potentially cataclysmic as that game could have been, with the 49ers dropping 4 Cs and the Seahawks passing them up. That probably won't happen, or potentially won't happen. I think if ED White were to win this game, they would probably just go up 1 or 2. We might go down 1 or 2. They probably won't pass us. But boys soccer, this is still huge for the entire division. If ED White can get this win, not just the fact that this is the Holy War, not just the fact that this is a rivalry game, and we will be favored, but that doesn't matter because this is a rivalry game. We were favored against the girls' soccer team last week, against ED White's girls' soccer team, and we saw what happened. That, it's not just that makes this a huge game. It's all of the implications around it. The seedings can change so much based on this game. The whole ramifications, everything regarding who's predicted to win, because that first seed matters a lot with who's predicted to win. Whether it becomes us, whether it becomes Loyola, whether it becomes U High, matters so much. Just with this one game, it affects so much. Partially because we lost to Lafayette. Our margin of error becomes a lot smaller because of that. So we have to go out there and beat ED White. That is what matters. Going out there and winning a big home game to finish off the season. Pretty sure it's a home game. I apologize. To finish off the season and having that momentum to go in to playoffs, whether we face ED White or Noma or wherever we play, knowing that we can beat them, whether it's at home or away, that momentum is going to be huge.
ED White has a pretty elite goalie.
They do?
Michael Tenney.
Okay.
He's really good.
And I know and we know from, I had him on a couple weeks ago, Nick Marley also is an elite goalie, which makes this a very interesting matchup. But seriously, they both are. And so that's it for this week. Thank you again to Will and Luke for coming on.
You
Will
good?
and, yeah, I'm good. Sorry, Will and Jacob, excuse me for coming on. It's been a long day. And thank you for both of them for coming on. And I wish everyone who's competing this week the best of luck. And I hope everyone who watched enjoyed. And I hope to see you guys next week, same time, same channel. I will see you then.